Hi guys, it's Davin here at Brewbitz.com. Behind the camera as usual we've got James. Say hello James. Right, today I thought we would brew up a California Connoisseur Merlot kit. And all we're going to do, first of all, once you've managed to get into the top, they glue it down pretty well. So you've got an instruction leaflet, read through that fully. And then once you've read through it, get going. Because we've got some other bits and bobs in our box. We have got a bag of premium oak chips, and we've got some other little sachets. We've got one with blue writing, one with green writing, one with red writing. These are our chemicals that we need to add at certain stages of making the wine. We've got another chemical here which is kind of pearlescent in colour called Kiselsol. Another one called chitosan. Those are our finings to help clear the wine, and lastly we've got our yeast. Okay, but first things first, there's a major thing inside the box that we're going to need to use, and it's this. This is a big bag of concentrated grape juice. So, first thing we're going to need to do in this, with our kits, let's take a blunt knife. Come on in James, have a look at this. Because we need to get this yellow cap off, and the easiest way I've found of getting the yellow cap off is using a blunt knife. You go in and then you twist. Simple as that. You'll notice the lid comes off. Now be careful at this stage because this is a heavy bag and you don't want to spill it anywhere because it does make a mess. Right, so in it goes into a 5-gallon, 23-litre bucket. Ooh. Okay. And we've got quite a bit of, you can see it's quite a bit of juice left in there. We don't want to waste all that. So, I'm going to take my lid. Go. Back on. Get as much out of there as possible. Don't want to waste any of that, do we? There's still a little bit more in there as well, so I'm going to get that out as well. Now, one of the tips I can give you on this is the water that you're going to use for brewing this. One of the tips is you take it off 24 hours before you're going to use it and leave it in a bucket overnight and let it come up to room temperature, and what that will do is that will help get rid of any chlorines from the water and will also get you ready so when you first start brewing the wine's already at the right temperature. Right, so give me 2 seconds because we now need to take our first chemical. So this is a little packet and it's called bentonite, and bentonite is a clay, and this clay can be found in lots and lots of different things including cosmetics and lots of foodstuffs, etc. And it is basically a grey powder, but this clay is absolutely fantastic at soaking up extra pectin that can be released by the grapes, and so that means at the end when we try and clear the wine you get a really good clear wine. So anyway, that goes in and we give it a good stir. Make sure it's all incorporated. Now that comes up. Come over here James, because my tap is quite good because I've got an extendy tap, and what I need to do now is I need to bring up the level of the water. On my bucket I've got some graduation. We need to bring it up to 5 gallons, 23 litres. Okay, so that's going to take a bit of time, and what I tend to find is make sure if you're going to pour wine in, you don't just pour water in, you don't just slosh it straight in at the top. You try and pour it down the sides. This will help prevent lots and lots of froth getting in there. Okay, so back in a moment when we get to 23 litres. Right guys, so once you've topped it up to your 23 litres, 5 gallons, you're left with a thick, lovely smelling liquid. And now I've got a bag here of oat chips. Have a look at your ingredients on your wine kits, because this Merlot says I need to add oat chips. You may have another wine kit where you need to add some other bits and bobs as well. So just read your instructions. And all we do is pop those in. Don't worry about it at this stage, they will disappear, they will sink to the bottom. They're going to add a lovely flavour, add a lovely oaky flavour as if it's been made in oak barrels. So give it a good stir, make sure they get all percolated down through. Before we add the yeast, I've taken a sample in my trial jar, and with my hydrometer I can see the specific gravity is coming out at 1.086. So you don't want to lose any of this. I'm going to pop that back in. Now write that specific gravity down on your instructions and keep that safe for later, because that's going to help us right at the end work out exactly how much alcohol is in. So, next thing we need to do is take our yeast and sprinkle our yeast in on top. Ooh. There we go, it's open now. So I like to sprinkle it all in over the top. Make sure you've got it all in. I like to make sure that the yeast comes into contact with the liquid and not just sat on top of any froth that's there. So just gently work it. We're not stirring it, we're just gently working it to make sure that the yeast comes in contact with our wine. There we go. Right. So, we're going to take our lid, and I'm going to clip our lid on in just two places, because this now needs to go into my warm cupboard at 20 degrees C, and it's going to be in there for about 7 days. It's going to have a really vigorous fermentation, and we leave these gaps here so that all the carbon dioxide can escape. Simple as that. So, just reiterate, into my warm cupboard, 20 degrees for 7 days. Hi guys, the California Connoisseur Merlot has been in my warm cupboard now for 7 days, and I've taken a reading with my hydrometer, and it's coming out at 1.008, so it's time to move on to the next step. So, what we need to do now is, down here, I've got a sterilised carboy, and you're going to need to use your siphon. Come on in, James, have a quick look at this, because all we're going to do is just gently put the siphon in the top, and as we come back to me, James, as we siphon it off and go down the bucket, there's some sediment at the bottom of the bucket here that we don't want to touch, so we're just going to gradually go down in a bit at a time. So, give a good suck. Get the wine flowing. And make sure, because this takes a bit of time, you've got something to keep you going. Okay, so once we've finished doing a bit of siphoning, come on in, James, have a quick look at this, because this is all the goo that's left behind, and we need to give that a good clean out. Don't let it dry in there, because otherwise it's an absolute nightmare. But we don't need this, so for the moment, that's out of the way. Right, so our carboy is now very heavy. Okay, the next thing is, for our carboy, I've got a bung and a bubbler, and in the bubbler here I've put some sterilising solution, and that's going to stop any bugs, bacteria, nasties getting into our wine. So, top goes back on. This now goes back into my warm cupboard for another, because we're going to go up to day 21, so it's going to be another 12 days in my warm cupboard. So, I shall see you in 12 days' time. It's day 20, and we've had the California Connoisseur Merlot in the carboy for the last 12 days. So I've taken a reading with my hydrometer, and it's coming out at 0.994. So it's ready for us to move on to the next steps. So what we need to do now, at the bottom of our carboy here, there's going to be quite a lot of sediment. So we need to rack the wine off of the sediment, and to do this we use our siphon again. So let me get my ends around the right way. In it goes, and we give a good suck. Now, you're going to need to let it flow into your second sterilised bucket. It takes a little bit of time to do this, so make sure you've got something to hand to keep you going. So I'm drinking a nice half of cider here. Anyway, see you in a moment. So I finished siphoning the Merlot off into a sterilised bucket, and you can see how much gunk we've got left in the bottle. That's no good to anybody, so off that goes. And down here, we've got our bucket. So into our bucket, we need to add the sachet of potassium metabisulfate. Okay, so in this goes, chop the top off. No, we didn't. I need to do that again. So that's better. Now we're in. Not in yet. God, these are terrible things to get into sometimes. There we go. So give it a good sprinkle across the top. It's just a white powder. Don't sniff it. And we need to get a long sterilised spoon, and in we go and give it a good stir. Make sure it's fully incorporated. Lovely. Okay, so now also in the pack, you would have seen a little packet of this slightly pearlescent liquid called Kieselguhr salt. And this is one of our finings agents. This is what's going to help. There might still be, you see, in the wine, some particles that are suspended. And this is going to help us to get rid of those particles and make them drop to the bottom. So what we do now, and we've added that, and we give that a little bit of a stir as well. And get all that mixed in. Now, back to me, James. Because what happens is as the yeast were eating all the sugar, the yeast were making carbon dioxide. Now, most of that carbon dioxide you saw bubbling up. However, some of it has actually dissolved itself into the wine and has created little gas bubbles. Now, you won't see them come to the surface, but it's in there. And what we now need to do over the next couple of days is we need to give it some really good vigorous stirring for the next 48 hours, about once or twice a day as you pass. Get your sterilised spoon out, get a really good rub going. Now try not to splash it, because as we know, red wine stains, so that's why I'm doing it in my kitchen. And do it for about 30 seconds, or if you can try and keep going for a minute or so, get a nice action going. And look at all this carbon dioxide, all this froth that's coming out. Because if we try to add or clear it with all this froth in, it doesn't clear properly. So, now we've done that, we need to pop our top on. Okay, and we need to stir this, as I said, every day, a couple of times a day for the next 2 days to get any remaining carbon dioxide gas out. There we go. So I've stirred my California Connoisseur for the last time. I've been doing it for the last couple of days to get all of the carbon dioxide that's been dissolved into it out of it. And now, according to the instructions, we need to add a sachet of potassium sorbate. Now, I like to add the least amount of chemicals to my wines as possible. And the only reason why you're really adding this is a preservative to keep it, if you're thinking about laying it down for a long time. So in my house, this isn't going to last a long time. And I've also found that these wines do actually lay down quite nicely for a number of years. I've got wines that I've laid down for 4 or 5 years without needing this. So back in the box it goes. But what we do need to do is, one of your other sachets will be a packet of what looks like a clear gel. It's called chitosan. And we need to put this in. And this is to remove any remaining sediment that's in our wine. So all we do is pour it straight in like that. We now need to give it its last final good stir to make sure all that chitosan is worked in. Don't overdo it, but give it a good stir. Make sure it's all worked in. Okay, so now we need to put our lid back on, and we need to pop it on properly all the way around. And I'm going to slide it over to here, because we now need to leave it in a place where it's not going to be disturbed for the next 6 days. So that's going to allow the chitosan and the kisasol to work together and actually take any particles that are suspended in the wine and drop them to the bottom and clear the wine to make it absolutely perfectly clear. So 6 days you're going to leave it without touching it. So my California Connoisseur Merlot has been sat in my bucket now for the last 6 days clearing, and it's now time to get out our siphon and transfer our wine into a nice new clean sterilised bucket down here. So all we're going to do, come on in James, can I have another quick look at this, because we're literally just going to drop the siphon in, give a quick suck and allow it to flow. And all we're going to do, gently, because there's going to be sediment at the bottom, but as the wine drops down, we're going to lower our siphon down into the wine and follow it down through until we've got all of the wine from that bucket into that bucket with no sediment. Now, there is something you're going to need whilst you do that, because it can take a few minutes. Grab yourself a glass of wine that you made a little while back and chill out. Right, so I finished siphoning off the wine into my second bucket here, and we don't need any of the sediment that's in there, so get rid of that. Now, we go. So right now, what I could do is using the siphon, I could bottle this straight away into my 30 bottles, but I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I like my wines to be as good as I can. So what I'm going to be doing is, down here I've got my carboy and I've also got my Harris filter, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the siphoning process, and I'm going to get my wine through my filter and polish it up as best as possible. So I'm just going to start this off. Now if you want to see how to use the Harris filter, then I've got a video showing you how to do that, and all we're going to do is just pop it on like so. It takes a few moments to come through. Oh, here it comes. And I'm just going to leave it to filter. And then we will have an absolutely fantastic wine that's going to be ready to bottle. It takes a little bit of time, so whilst that's going like this, I'm going to go and have my tea. So I filtered my wine, and it's just before I'm going to bottle, I'm going to have a quick little taster. And so I've siphoned a little bit off, and it's actually very good. It's what I've come to expect from a California Connoisseur kit. There's quite a lot of zing because it's still a very young wine. It's only 28 days old, you know. Give it its due. 28 days. This is very drinkable. It's got a nice bit of oakiness from the oaks that we put in at the beginning. A little bit of muskiness, sorry, from the very, very fruity. Lots and lots of fruit going in. Anyway, what I've got here is I've got my sterilised bottles, and I've got my siphon, and I've put the tap on the end of my siphon again, and I'm going to come back now, give a quick suck, and I'm going to fill my bottle up. Now, I like to cork my bottles, so come down into me, James. I'm going to be taking my wine up to about the top of my little finger, and that's going to allow me to cork it. Now back to me, James, whilst this is filling up, because I'm sure you don't really want to see me bottle 30 bottles of wine. All you need to do to see how we bottle wine is to go to our other video, which shows you exactly what to do, how to bottle wine, how to prepare your corks, and everything like that. So that's my first of 30 bottles done, and all I need to do now, once I finish bottling this, is stand it up for 24 hours after I put the cork in, and then lay it down, leave it ideally for a month to get allow it to bottle condition. But if you can't leave it for a month, start drinking it anyway, and by the time you get round to your 30th bottle, it'll be a cracking wine.